Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about Hieronymus Bosch. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut era in principio et nunc et semper in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Amen. All right, so we got Hieronymus Bosch. He's probably going to be one of the few Northern European painters we have. And he was 1450 to 1519, 1516 or so. And the reason I say this is because after the Reformation, you don't see a lot of Catholic painters over in Northern Europe. And just in general, maybe with the exclusion of Flanders, where you see like Rembrandt and Vermeer and Rubens in that area, you don't see a lot of famous German painters, and then you have the sprinkling of the English painters, but most of them were not Catholic, of course. Either way, Hieronymus Bosch, love this guy. I had a gigantic poster of the Garden of Earthly Delights in my dorm room in college, and when I went to Spain for the first time in 1995, a long time ago, I made sure I went to the Prado, which is the large museum over in Madrid. We talked about it when we talked about Zuberon, and made sure to actually go see the Garden of Earthly Delights. I've always found his work to be just, as a high schooler, when you look at his depictions of hell and all the symbolism that's in a lot of his paintings, it just drives you crazy. You think it's so cool and so strange. And certainly it was a kind of a forerunner to more futurist painters like Salvador Dali 400 years later. But Bosch is a visionary, and his paintings are unique. So let's focus on him. He was from present day the Netherlands when it was still Catholic. I know it's hard to believe because it's so kind of associated with Calvinism, but definitely was still a Catholic time. He's kind of contemporaneous with Erasmus, the great thinker. And most of his surviving works, and there's only 25. The large majority are in Spain because Philip II, the great Spanish monarch, bought a lot of them when he was alive, and then eventually, of course, they ended up in museums down there. Most of his paintings are triptychs, meaning there's the center and then there's the two flaps. There's a lot of painters who do this. Grunewald was one who did the Eisenheim altarpiece. That was a triptych too. But it was very common in that kind of period of time. So let's focus on the Garden of Earthly Delights. It's probably his most famous painting. This was done in the early 1500s. On the left, you have the Garden of Eden with a young God, with Adam and Eve. And then you got in the middle, which is the Garden of Earthly Delights. And it's an interesting painting. And the thing is, Bosch never really did a lot of commentary on his paintings. So a lot of it, you got to figure things out on your own. But the Garden of Earthly Delights is a lot of frolicking and a lot of nude people. And it looks like, as a whole, and a lot of weird, like not scary creatures. But it's like maybe it's pre-fall innocence, right? Garden of Earthly Delights, or maybe it's some of it's presaging that they're going to be concupiscent, end up, of course, on the right side of the triptych. But it's very phantasmagorical. Certainly, there's a lot of creatures and globes and weird objects in it. Then, of course, on the right side of the Earthly Delights is hell. And I mean, that was my favorite part, of course, as a high schooler at college, just looking at these creatures, what's going on with them. And Bosch was really in touch with early kind of medieval, I should say, Catholic theology, because some of the beliefs about hell is like whatever your deadly sin is or your concupiscent vices, that's what the demons are going to be doing to you. So if you are gluttonous, you're going to be devoured, or your belly is going to be devoured by demons. But honestly, we really don't know. But he does have other famous paintings. He has two other Last Judgments. I'm going to show them here. These are triptychs. So Last Judgment from 1495 to 1505. And here's another Last Judgment as well. And again, we can't do these justice. I really recommend you Google them and look at the symbolism of each of it. I mean, there's just so much minuscule precision in all of his paintings. You got the Haywith Triptych. This is another kind of Garden of Earthly Delights, but it's more like the left side is kind of innocence. The right side is people doing different things. Some of them are doing things that are going to lead them to hell, and then the right side is hell. Then you have the visions of the hereafter. It looks a little apocalyptic. The Temptation of St. Anthony. And he did do some regular non-hell stuff. He has a really pretty one of St. Julia being crucified. One of his most famous triptychs is the Adoration of the Magi. So this is Hieronymus Bosch. Of course, he's most famous for the Garden of Earthly Delights, but definitely check out his other paintings, the few that survive, And again, like I mentioned before, we used to use painting as a way to teach children, teach adults. This is what's going to happen, like judgment of nations in Matthew 25. If you do good works and you believe in him, you're going to be part of the sheep. And and if you don't, you're going to be part of the goats. And these pictures would demonstrate really well and remind people. Now, I mean, you would never see this stuff anymore, right? Because like I mentioned that episode on 3 Catholic teachings, a lot of Catholics themselves wouldn't even believe. A lot of people don't even believe in judgment anymore, the idea of we're going to go to heaven, hell, or purgatory. A lot of people just don't even believe in hell anymore, and that's probably the devil's greatest deception. Either way, post in the comments, let me know, are you familiar with the Garden of Earthly Delights? And again, I really recommend, out of all of our painters, this is the ones that you really go look at their paintings and zoom in on different aspects of it, especially Garden of Earthly Delights. Please hit the notifications, subscribe, and share button. Share with like-minded people. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.